Lorna, can I ask you if Charlie constantly texts you, calls you or contacts you?
The risk identification checklist is for use with adult victims of domestic abuse. It relates to recent incidents of abuse and therefore is best used with those currently experiencing domestic abuse or where the abuse has recently ended.
And you said that sometimes he follows you as well.
Yeah, just to see where I am.
Okay.
The aim of the form is to identify the risks ongoing in anyone's individual situation, to consider some actions to meet those risks, and where it's used by all agencies across the locality, it creates a consistent language of risk which improves multi-agency working. The form can be completed by any professional working with a victim of domestic abuse, those for whom it's their specialist area of practice, such as an IDVA or a domestic abuse worker, but also those for whom it isn't their common area of business, such as a health visitor.
The role of the IDVA, and IDVA stands for Independent Domestic Violence Advisor, is to do exactly what it says on the tin, which is to be an independent representative, an independent voice for the victim.
The form is in a checklist format, which means that you can go through it question by question and just get a yes or no answer, but it also provides lots of space for additional information, so you can start a conversation and ask additional questions in relation to the form.
You've recently had a baby, obviously. 6 months old, is that right, your youngest child?
Yes.
Okay, because my next question was about whether you've had a baby within the last 18 months, so we'll pop down a yes for that. The risk identification checklist is something that all IDVAs will use in their work with clients, and they'll fill one of those out at the very start of their involvement with that client. And what that risk identification checklist enables them to do is to understand what's going on in that relationship, what the behaviour of the perpetrator is like, what the client's feeling like at that particular time, so that they can build a safety plan with the client that takes into account their wants and their needs and their priorities to address their safety.
It's important before you get the form out to complete it that you're sure you're in a safe place, that you have enough time to complete the checklist properly with the client, and that the client understands what you're about to do. It's also really important that the client has complete understanding of your confidentiality policy and where you may need to breach their confidentiality to keep somebody safe.
Lorna, would you say that the abuse is happening more often? So would you say that it's increasing in frequency, that the incidents are closer together, that they're happening more?
Yeah.
It's very important to be sure that you've recorded your professional judgement and considered whether the case is escalating. That might be whether there are more incidents happening or whether they're getting worse. Once you've considered those two things, you should also add up the number of yes responses you received through the checklist. Depending on how many you receive, you should take the following actions. If the client scores 9 or below, consider making a referral to a domestic abuse service with the consent of that client. If they score 10 or above, this case is high risk and you should consider some additional options, such as the involvement of the IDVA service, who often work with clients at this threshold or above. If the client scores 14 or more on the risk identification checklist, this is a potential MARAC threshold case because the case is high risk. Consider carefully whether you should make a referral to MARAC. The client doesn't need to consent to the referral, but the case works best if they are aware of the referral and consent to it.